All right, time out for a minute. Just take a break, okay? Jesse, can you pull up that chart, the CO2 level chart for us?
Yeah, ones.
So, and take a look at this here. Here are the CO2 levels for indoor charts, and it actually shows outdoor there. But you can see we start off at 400 parts per million for normal, everyday outdoor air quality.
Right.
Now, currently, we stand today, as I check the numbers, at 416.69 parts per million. So we're not too far over our actual normal level as we stand here today.
Right.
And you can see the chart there goes up into indoor, where we're talking 400 to 1,000 parts per million. Now, projected levels to 2025, they're projecting them to be up near around 550 parts per million outdoors.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, who developed the data, number one? I mean, you know, but these are probably the same people that wanted everybody to walk around with masks on, inhaling their own carbon dioxide, you know, for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
come on. You know, let's just be real here.
Well, even the models are showing if you project out to 3050 that we're looking upwards of 900 parts per million. 200 years out, we're looking around 1,000 parts per million. Now, that's staying at our current trajectory using just current technology. That's not with any improvement on the system or grid is where we stand.
They can't predict the weather 10 days out, and they want to claim that they can predict 30 years out, 50 years out, 100.
Sure, the models represent that. They do show.
We're going to talk about computer models in a little bit because we have some authority on computer model development and just how big of a sham that particular set is.
I don't know if you call it a sham, but the information is out there, and that's where we need to go and direct people towards is educating themselves.
Let me tell you, it's not a sham, the people that are developing the computer models. It's the people who take the select data points to make a point and not take the picture as a whole. That's what's deceptive. It's not these people out here doing the studies. It's not, you know, people developing the science behind all of the detection and all that kind of stuff. It's the people who grab the data after and distill it down to only the talking points that they want to make. Sure. And they're not transparent. They don't have, an even balanced approach. All they want to do is say one thing, and that's it.
Well, that's why the education side is so important, because they're getting us down to the scales, like you said, to pick apart this to promote their own agenda.
Right.
And
right.
A lot of it's driven by, monetized systems. Money is a key factor. Greed.
Power.
That's a huge one.
Money and power and control of the masses. They want to control business. They want to control people. And that's everything that's behind this. And it's nothing new. I mean, Why would we be shocked that they just develop a new thing to use, a new tool to use? We can look in the history of our civilization and we can see how people get manipulated by different things. So sure. We keep going down that road. What makes us think that that's not happening today?
Oh, it does happen today. But then that's an issue where we need to reverse that.
Right.
We need to find a way to combat, climb out of the holes, and come out of that with the knowledge and education to get people the information they need to make the correct and right decision.
Right. The first is a truthful, honest discussion without spin.
Correct.
Right. Get the spin out of it, get the facts into it, and not selected facts, all the facts.
And that it does. And here's another thing. Jesse, pull up the next CO2 pie chart that we have there. And I know it's kind of small here. Here we go. Now, this globally, greenhouse emissions, this is a chart by economic sector. And you can see there, take a look at the transportation. 14% of transportation is leading in this right now at this point in time.
Right.
Now, we talk about these new technologies, electric vehicles and things coming aboard. So what that will do is transition that section of the pie maybe down to 10%, correct?
Right.
Which is an improvement. But at the same time, too, relatively speaking, where we see on the other side at 25% is electricity and heat production. Well, that is dealing with fossil fuels and coals. So even though we're reducing the transportation sector, say, down to 10%, we'll probably see a flux in the electricity and heat production by maybe 27%. So you get a little bit of reduction, but there's an offset there.
Right.
Unless we get rid of coal.
Correct. I mean, if you eliminate coal out of the equation altogether, that will drop that particular sector down.
Right. In the meantime, while the U.S. reduces its use of coal, China and India have exponentially increased their use. So the net effect is a restriction on the United States and its businesses instead of any impact on the planet whatsoever. And let me just say this, because we talked earlier about experts, and Steve Koonin, who is the author of Unsettled: What Climate Science Tells Us and What It Doesn't and Why It Matters. He's one of America's most distinguished scientists with decades of experience, including a stint as Undersecretary of Science at the Department of Energy in the Obama administration. He wrote this book in 2021, and he talks about the fact that human influences are a 1% effect on a complicated, chaotic, multi-scale system for which we presently have poor observations.
Quite a statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have an effect. Is it 1%? No, I do believe it's probably greater than 1%.
No, it is
somewhere
1%.
in there.
Yeah,
That's
no.
By what he is saying.
Right.
But his interpretation of the materials.
No. Well, he's qualified to interpret it for sure, because, at the end of the day, he's a PhD physicist who understands how to read scientific reports and has studied IPCC reporting on the matter. What we would call the base data elements. He's read the reports. He's done the research.
Sure.
He is not somebody who is just taking sound bites and creating some kind of sensational statement. He's actually looked at everything.
But, speaking of just the 1% of humans involved in that, and then you take us as the equation in the United States, right?
Right.
And what we're trying to effectively do and effectively accomplish. This is a world problem. This is nothing that is going to, be resolved just from the United States. But what we can do is we become a world leader and educate the populace of the planet on how to proceed with this to benefit everyone as a whole.
Right. No, and I agree. When he undertook studying climate issues, he said he was shaken by the realization that climate science was far less mature than he had supposed when he started looking into it.
Sure.
And so when people come out with all of these extreme statements, all of these definitive remarks that say it's this way and period, they lose the argument at the beginning because they don't know.
Or they use it and lose it at the end. Like, here's a good example for you. Back in 2020, they realized that sulfur dioxide pollution, was harming tens of thousands of people and causing premature deaths.
Right.
So they regulated regulations that would come along and reduce 80% of the dioxide, sulfur dioxide released into the atmosphere from cargo ships. They realized that's where the majority of this was coming from.
Right.
So they implemented this. They were able to do so. And a total victory for cleaning out that pollutant from our atmosphere. But the unintended side effect, or you'd say the opportunity cost for that was we realized really quick that particular pollutant cloud of sulfur dioxide was actually a reflectant from the sun's radiated heat coming down to the earth and reflecting it back to, out of our atmosphere into space.
Right.
So as this plume kind of dissolved over a period of time, we started seeing ocean waters rise in temperature.
Warm again. Right.
Because now the radiated heat was able to get through the atmosphere and first of all, immediately affect the oceans. And that was a contributing factor to the climate change we're talking about.
Right. And let me tell you just how ridiculous this all is, right? So there's another group of scientists who advocate what they call SRM, or solar radiation management. Mm-hmm. And what they did was they observed when Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991 that about 20 million tons of sulfur dioxide went into the atmosphere and slightly cooled the planet for about 3 years. So these scientists, they take a look at that and they go, oh, maybe it's a great idea if we go ahead and develop some kind of strategy where we fly these strato bombers up into the upper atmosphere and release sulfur dioxide, right?
Yeah.
Well, when sulfur dioxide mixes with water, it becomes sulfuric acid.
Correct.
Right? Acid rain. Mm-hmm. Right? So we got one group that wants to reduce sulfur dioxide, another that's promoting, let's put it in the atmosphere to reduce
global temperatures, basically. Yeah.
Right. This is where the science is.
That's where the science is, but it's great. We have these goals. We know where we want to go. The technology is getting there to reach those goals. We have the models, the maps to get there. But like, for instance, in this example, we got there. We got the result we wanted by helping, save lives and, in the community. But we never looked beyond that point. Right. So we never understood what was going to happen after we got there. Right.
There in any decision, there's the principle of unintended consequences, right? There's always something when you pull here. It's kind of like one of those little squishy balloons when you make the animals, right? When you squeeze in one place, the air goes somewhere else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, we have a pretty big planet here, and it's pretty arrogant to think that we squeeze here and something else isn't going to happen over here. No. It's just not realistic.
No, and one of those unintended consequences, as we saw right now, is we forgot to introduce ourselves.
Yes,
welcome
how
to
you doing?
The Gruber Wired Hour. I'm John Dotson,
and I'm Mark Beach. You've caught us at a lively moment. We're kind of picking up where we left off last week. Toward the end of the podcast. First we started with our normal stuff, and then we got into it a little bit. But today we just.
We're just continuing along with it.
Right.
And, out of all these new technologies that come in, like we mentioned, we have solar power, we have electric vehicles.
Right.
There's just a mass amount of technology coming our way. Then one of those pieces of technology is, and I know Pete's going to talk about this on their Wednesday AI podcast, is fusion. Fusion energy, it will be here. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. And look, nuclear power, fusion power, clean power.
Yeah.
And no one's not for clean power.
No, we're all for it. It's just a matter of how do we get there. It's the road we're going to take.
Right, and no one is for tying the hands of business in America while they figure it out. Figure it out, give them an alternative that isn't solar or turbines, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with solar. Don't get me wrong. Solar's fine. It's still costs a lot to develop.
For the amount of BTUs that it releases, sure. And that's where the technology will come along to increase the output of BTUs eventually in the solar.
If we stopped putting anywhere near the subsidies that we put into oil and we put those subsidies into solar, we'd be much farther along, it'd be much cheaper and much more efficient.
Well, that's a great blanket statement, but where are the facts behind it?
It's just how science works. The more you research it, the further it goes.
Well, when you talk about money going into oil, you're talking about exploration to drill, right? You're not talking
not only
about
that, but different types of technologies.
The subsidies that you claim are actually for research and development, not for just handing the oil companies a check.
That's my point. We don't want to continue researching and developing oil.
Why?
Because there are alternatives that we could be researching and developing that are clean, like solar and nuclear.
I think you can do both. Here's a statistic I took. Okay, between 2013 and 2021, nations collectively around the world spent $9.45 trillion on their armed forces. Okay,
right.
The amount of money spent on climate control in regards to that was only $243.9 billion.
Right.
And we have the allocated and the money out there. We just need to reallocate it to fight the battles we wanted to fight.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not advocating for de-arming our military, though.
No, I can understand that. But the U.S. military in vast scale they've got the largest carbon footprint on Earth. Just our own military.
Right. Well,
that's true.
When we look at all this and we say, what is the purpose of, let's just call it defunding oil? What's the purpose behind that? What's the agenda behind that?
So
do you realize how many products you use that are not related to the combustion engine that you use oil-based products in creating?
Right, that's my point. That's why we need to put more research into alternatives and stop funding this further advancement of different plastics and different polymers and all these different things that are made up of fossil fuels. We can find alternatives. We just aren't spending the time, the money, the research to do so.
Of course there are. There are plenty of people who think like you think. They just haven't done it. They haven't achieved it because this is something that is a well-developed science, and it is science. It's settled science, how we develop materials out of oil products.
But I also think it goes back to that whole thing of power and money.
Right.
Who controls power, who controls the money, and where they want that money to go within certain sectors of our own economic world that we live in.
Right.
And
what's the agenda? We always have to ask that. Why?
Yeah, shouldn't have to.
Is it, you can't turn on the news without hearing some kind of spin, some kind of propaganda of, of an invention of a problem instead of a real problem. This is the biggest scam perpetrated on the public ever. This climate hoax thing, and it's related.
But we
to,
can even we don't have to tie it to climate though. Let's just forget about the climate change part of it. What are the reasons to move off of fossil fuel? Because let's just say, just in the transportation sector alone, electric vehicles, when a battery, like companies like Redwood Materials are at 98% recyclability on a battery. You can't recycle fuel, right? So the recyclability is there. The speed is there. EVs, the new Tesla Model S Plaid does 220 miles an hour. It can reach the same top speeds as any of those other cars, and it accelerates much faster. The engine is much more efficient. There's far less maintenance. So there are a bunch of reasons to switch off of fossil fuel, not have anything to do with climate change.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm all for developing all sorts of technologies. I mean, but how much did the government have to invest per car in Tesla for them to be able to do it? They had to subsidize that whole process because it wasn't developed. And now it is. And so the government, what you claim that we're not making investments in it is inaccurate. We are making investments.
I'm not saying that we're not making investments in it. I'm saying we need to take the investments for oil and put more investment into it. And Tesla, by the way, has become the single most valuable car company in about 1/10 of the time of any other fossil fuel company that's existed.
And that's fine. But when we get down to the bottom line of this, I understand the technology will get us there eventually, but the common, normal, everyday person needs to understand the value of that. And what I mean by that is it's got to be cost effective. They have to have education and knowledge to be able to make the right decisions. It's like anything else. If I understand the value in something, then I will put the essence into that.
Right.
But if I don't, I'm just going to be like, hey, that costs too much. I'm not going to deal with it.
Look, and let's just say that, okay, if they are able to recycle 95% of a battery, then that means that they have to create 5 new batteries for every 100 cars they put on the road, right? So they still have to create 5 plus increase sales. So where are all those materials coming from? Where is that lithium coming from to make those batteries?
So lithium is refined out of a brine pond. It doesn't emit CO2.
Oh, that's simply not true. These are strip mines in like Africa and places like that.
No, you're talking about going into the mines in Africa where they have child labor, where they're pulling out cobalt. And Tesla, with their new LFP batteries, does not use cobalt in any of their products. They stopped using cobalt 3 years ago. That's just old news. No. Cobalt is not going to be a primary catalyst in the batteries anymore.
So then I guess we just need to go and send rockets into space and grab a asteroid full of lithium then, and then we'll be clean.
Lithium is salt. Salt is one of the most plentiful things we have on this planet.
That's very true. And they just discovered a big vein going down through California, correct?
Yeah, there's in Nevada.
There's Nevada enough, and California.
Yeah, there's enough. They just discovered a place in Nevada, and they're working with the tribes there to get access to the land, where you can make 20 million EVs out of it.
And no one is saying that technology shouldn't be developed, or any technology. You would not hear me say that. However, what you have heard me say is that the manipulation of the populace into whether it's regulatory restrictions or forced behavior is what's wrong. And claiming client crisis is the way that they do it. And it's what's constantly promoted in the media. It's what's constantly on the news when they talk about, all the heat related deaths. Okay. That's a pretty big topic, right? Mm-hmm. All the heat related deaths because of climate change, right?
No.
Yeah, no. They say that. They say that. Right. And it may be true. But what they don't tell you is that there are 9 times more cold related deaths, and those have decreased more than the number of heat-related deaths have increased.
Sure.
So what they do is they give you part of the story, not the whole story, and it blows the whole thing. And you got to wonder, why do they do that? Because they want to control behavior. They want to manipulate people into doing things. And I'm all for Tesla, Lucid, anybody developing electronic vehicles to do it on the strength of their ideas, their product in the marketplace. As a matter of fact, I'm all for fuel cell technology. I would love to see fuel cell technology take off.
Yeah, that would be great. But,
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of education. One of the main driving factors is we're pushing so fast with this technology that the infrastructure hasn't changed.
Right.
And that takes you down a whole new level of taking a look at, well, what's going to happen? The middle of the road needs to come along and meet somewhere with the infrastructure that comes along with that.
Right.
And the infrastructure itself is still 30, 40 decades out if we were to start
Years.
today.
Yeah.
But
Here and here's the thing. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. You can go on blogs online and see people trying to take a trip with their EV across the country and trying to make it. Right?
Sure.
And I understand it's an emerging technology. So it's not a criticism of the technology. What it is a criticism of the aggressiveness of propaganda to try and force behavioral change instead of letting the market develop it.
Yeah, and stop infringing upon the consumer. I
Right.
understand what you're saying at that point. But, when it goes back to this, we've got the cart way before the horse. And it's going to have to be a middle of the road to those sectors come to meet. And then all of a sudden, the ideas will flow even more and generate more infrastructure to go along with this for the future needs, because
Right.
it's going to have to happen. Just like Lucid out here. Pete took a tour over at the plant over there, was in Casa Grande, and he discovered that there's robots out there are being used in the production of these vehicles, and they're even
Right.
going as far as to use the category cabling that we manufacture.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, let me tell you, I mean, this is a podcast about technology. And we will bring it back to that, I'm sure, right?
Right.
We're getting there. For those of you who come, to be entertained, we just did that. But we, at the end of the day, look, we support innovation. There is absolutely no one here in this room, in this building, that doesn't support innovation.
No, not at all.
But where I draw the line is forcing people to do things based on manipulation. That's it.
Yeah,
Everything else, if it's a great idea, it'll take off. We're not in the days of Nikolai Tesla and the government suppressing his work, right? We're not there anymore. The internet is too vast, and there are too many people out there with ideas who get their ideas in the ecosystem, right?
That has to change. The way we talk about it has to change. It has to go from being an anger issue,
Right.
which is where we're at right now, to actually a nice, solid, firm debate, right? And then a debate with the knowledge turns into conversations.
Right.
And those conversations is where we find people in their backyards barbecuing. That's where minds are changed.
Right.
I wholeheartedly believe we're going to find our next scientists, and the people who are going to solve this problem. They're out this weekend cooking some burgers with their kids.
Right.
And their friends and their neighbors. But that's where the conversation needs to get to. The education needs to get there so that people understand the value and what's looking to take place and the changes that are needed.
Right. And absolutes don't belong in science, because science is all about investigation. It's about understanding how things work. We had quote unquote settled science about the Big Bang, right?
Yeah.
But now the James Webb Space Telescope is out there, and people are rewriting books because of it, right? No, there are things that they just didn't know, they couldn't see, and so they only made statements based on what they could observe.
Sure.
Well, it's the observable universe has changed, the detail has changed, and technology got us there. And it's the same thing with all this stuff. All I'm saying is question everything, people. Do not take anybody's word for something. If you cannot find, your own place of peace in a situation, I'm not saying, if it's an issue that's not important to you, don't worry about it. But if you're going to go out and tout something This is like directed at the news media too, right? Just being out there repeating talking points and not understanding what you're saying is a big problem.
Yeah, and that all, again, I stem back to the term education because that is where the value is in it for me. And, once I understand and have the knowledge, then I can understand what the opportunity costs are that are associated with it.
Right. Education, not indoctrination.
I want to understand the value.
We don't want to turn out robots. We want free thinking people who are committed to understanding the detail behind what they say, not just speaking, somebody else's talking points, relying on somebody's distillation of facts that may or may not be accurate.
And Jesse, I got to say, you brought this up before the podcast about the whole crisis mode that we're in. And I said, I personally don't see this as a crisis.
No.
At this point in time. And I think it's a manufactured crisis.
Yes. It 100% is. Again, just like acid rain, just like the hole in the ozone, it's a mechanism to control people and governments and business. That's it. I'm sorry,
let's
the truth hurts. Truth hurts.
Let's explore that because you said that last week too. You said it's a method to control people, and that's where I went into that whole thing last week about control them for what? Control them to do what? What is the climate crisis agenda that you foresee? Forcing people to do what?
Forcing people to behave in a way that they want them to behave, whatever that manipulation is. I mean, how many people bought those little water bottles 20 years ago? Where did we get our water from?
Yeah. Faucet, the hose in the backyard.
Right. Created a whole manipulation that, we can't trust that water. We got to drink this water now. I mean, there's all sorts of finer points to the manipulation. It's like businesses like carbon credits, right? We were talking about that after the podcast about carbon credits, right?
Uh-huh.
They get charged for over emissions. There's no dispute about that. And if they're efficient and they can,
but that's good. That's good that they get charged for putting too much pollutant into the air.
But I can also go buy those credits before I even put pollution in the air.
Right.
They're for sale in the market like a stock or anything else that's out there.
So, but that's just corruption. That has nothing to do with what is the agenda.
That's part of the agenda. It's money-based, money-driven.
Right.
What do you mean?
What don't you understand?
It's money-driven. So saying there's a climate crisis is just magically generating money for the government?
Sure.
A lot of it, too.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
How is it generating money for the government?
Through regulation.
Yeah. They
through agendas down to local levels.
I mean, have you ever, just in the city of Phoenix, you try and build something or whatever, right? Have you ever gone through that process?
Building something? No.
It's a bureaucratic nightmare. For a private citizen, it is. Mm-hmm. Now, for a contractor who's been doing it for a long time, hey, it's easy, rubber stamps, all that. But for the average Joe, no.
No, ask Chaz.
Ask Chaz about,
So, and that's because of the climate crisis? You can't build buildings?
It's just anything. It's regulation gone amok. And it's the same thing with the climate stuff.
So I don't understand though. What is the regulation gone amok? So we charge them if they put too much into the air to where it's uninhabitable because we don't want to be like China. We don't want our citizens to be having to wear masks everywhere they go, right? Because of the amount of CO2. It's like terrible conditions when you go to certain places in China, especially some of the industrial cities. We don't want to live like that. So we charge the businesses a fee when they dump too much, but we're not cutting them off from still dumping into our atmospheres. We haven't banned coal. We haven't outlawed coal power plants. So we're regulating them to keep us safe. Where is what you're saying happening where it's so intrusive that it's destroying our economy or it's making people do things they don't want to do?
Well, it gets to the point to where at this point in time, it's not economical for the local person or the average person to take part in. It doesn't make sense yet on a monetary stage. So you're going to force me and infringe upon me to pay X amount in fees and so forth along the road that
okay, but
I can't afford to do so.
What you're getting at though is, again, you're making straw man arguments and you're saying that it's prevented this and it's had this kind of effect. when you don't know that, and if you do, then I want to see facts. I don't want, because you're making feeling statements right now.
No, it's not a feeling statement.
It is a feeling statement.
No,
because
when a coal power plant is putting pollutant into the air,
but they have mitigation. They have mitigation techniques,
right? And if they don't meet those techniques and they go past that, that's when they get fined.
So if they meet them, then it's okay to have coal plants.
According to our current system, yeah.
Right.
Is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. What you're saying is the overregulation doesn't exist.
So how many coal plants have mitigation systems that don't comply?
Good question.
I don't know the stats off the top of my head.
It's going to be, I'm telling you, all of them in India and China, none of them in the U.S. If they're out of compliance, they either have to pay the credit, and there's a financial incentive to do that. But the problem is that this financial incentive, the carbon credit, can be bought by, let's just say, Madonna to fly in her L6 or G6.
Right, but you don't see how that's a problem that doesn't have to do with climate change. That's a corrupt power plant owner or company running the power plant that then goes and circumvents the regulation, which is there to protect people.
No, it's the government selling those carbon credits. It's the
I'm not saying the government isn't corrupt either, but I'm saying that the climate controls that are put in place are there for a reason. How those things get manipulated and the government sells the credits when they shouldn't and the companies buy the credits when they shouldn't has nothing to do with there needing to be a limit on the CO2 production.
Who determines the reason, though? How do they determine the reason, the levels? Again, it's all based on politics. It has no basis. I'm not going to say no basis in science, but they don't understand the science behind it. It's like, let's have a prohibition against dust storms in Phoenix because they're unhealthy, right?
Right.
I mean, they happen, right? Okay. And that we have a lot of no burn days during the winter, right? Why? Not because people are burning too much, right? Not because there's a coal-fired plant outside of Phoenix, because there isn't. There's a nuclear power plant. We don't have that same issue. The issue we do have is what's called temperature inversion, where all of the pollutants, all of the vehicle emissions are kept down toward the surface of the Earth because there is a higher, I think it's a higher temperature.
Basically, it's a heat dome.
It's a heat layer above and below a cold layer. So however, I'm not a climate person, but however it works, it's called temperature inversion, and it keeps the polluted air down. It has nothing to do with how much is being produced, but how our particular climate in our particular area reacts.
Right, but if every car in Phoenix was an EV, that wouldn't happen.
In our city environment, sure. I can understand it would clear up. We saw that during the pandemic when we were still open, as we were, one of those businesses stayed open and a lot of people were, temporarily at home. I got to go to work every day. After about a week and a half to 2 weeks, it changed.
Yeah.
The sky color changed.
Sure.
The taste of the air quality changed.
Right.
So we can see that within a matter of moments that this can have an effect within your localized areas.
Right. Now, should Seattle have to follow regulations that are developed for Phoenix?
No, that's the part of the equation where everything does need to be looked at on more of a microscopic level to look at the environment of individual areas. But that doesn't solve the problem globally. And eventually we have to get to a global solution on this. I mean, it's going to have to happen.
Right. And you have to think about the infrastructure that it would be required for 3 million, 4 million vehicles to all be EV. I mean, that would be an insane amount of power that would be needed.
Yeah, it's no doubt we're going to hurt on our way there. It's going to be some growing pains to get there. But like I said before, once we find that middle intersection of that road, that will change everything.
Look, and I'm not against EVs, but I am just saying that when you make a statement like, if everybody did this, right? I mean, it's a feel-good statement, but it's not.
It was just a direct response to what you were saying, and it's true.
But right. Well,
if every vehicle driving here in the Metro Phoenix area were an EV, there would be no emissions to cause the conditions you just said.
How long have you lived here?
My entire life.
Okay. So you have experienced the same problem when there are forest fires, right? They have nothing to do with vehicles, right? You get fire. Okay. Or fires in town here. I mean, if the inversion is in place, you see, like, especially if it's a tire fire or a mulch fire, and you just see it kind of hang, right? Nothing to do with vehicle emissions.
Sure.
You've seen the winds blow from LA into Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
And we get their pollution or their fires, nothing to do with us. So all of these absolute statements, like it would never happen, is not accurate.
It would, because the LA, if all of LA were EVs, we wouldn't get any pollution from them.
If we get to that point, you're absolutely
You know how many
correct.
times a fire happens that coats the entire valley? Maybe once every few years. Maybe. Where it coats the entire metro area?
It's been about that. That's about average.
Maybe once every 3 or 4 years does that happen.
Right, but the point is not...
Whereas we live in it all day, every day, with the 2, 3 million, 4 million vehicles driving around.
Okay, I mean, when I look outside, I don't see it, do you? I mean, you have to look at a distance.
Why do you think we have the most amazing sunsets here? It's not because of just the way the mountains are. It's because of the pollution that we live in on a regular basis.
The reflected light that goes through them. We see
That's
all
a lot of indoctrination going on in that statement. Arizona sunsets have been beautiful since I got here in 1968.
Okay, well, when
there were 700,000 people here in the Valley of the Sun.
Because I can pull up my pictures from COVID when there were no cars driving, and the sunsets are completely different.
That's a logical fallacy. Because you are claiming cause and effect when you have no basis in reality for that.
I'm literally saying I can show you physical evidence of it.
You're just saying because it's cold outside, I can make ice. Well, sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. When the air blows, because we have dust storms. I mean, we get beautiful sunsets with dust storms too. The whole thing is not causal. It can be causal, but it's not always causal.
You realize that just because sometimes other stuff happens.
But you're saying that is the cause of beautiful sunsets in Arizona, and it is not the cause of beautiful sunsets.
95% of the time it is.
No. Anybody lived here a long time that, when there were less than 1 million cars on the road? And I mean,
we did have. I mean, I've been here long enough to see that as well.
Look,
but
it's a logical fallacy to tie one thing to another like that. It's
also a logical fallacy to bring up dust storms, naturally occurring dust storms, when we're talking about human-caused climate change.
Well, theoretically, these climate scientists would say severe weather, including severe wind and dust storms, would be causal.
Okay, so then still bringing that up again goes towards the point of climate change. So it's not in the way that you're using it.
Well, I completely disagree with that, and I'm sorry. I was reading a question here. So Daryl was asking us, are we able to manufacture highly flexible robotic cables designed for high stress, twisting, and fast motion with energy chains and 3D applications? So
I mean, that's kind of in our custom manufacturing wheelhouse.
Right.
Yeah, most definitely.
And as we know, Quabbin, who is the U.S. manufacturer that we make our cables from, they have several different types of cable solutions, including harsh environment cable solutions. So that can withstand repeated activity, and they're not solid. They're
a stranded
cable, right?
Cable to give it the flexibility it's needed.
Right,
correct.
Right. And so you know how when you have a solid cable and you do this, eventually it's going to break, right? Mm-hmm. But with twisted cable, it's not that.
Yeah, you get the flexibility you need.
Yep.
And gives you, especially for something like this environment here, which leads us into talking about, guys, thank you for paying attention to us and having a little bit of fun with us there.
And I didn't mean to, I wasn't ignoring your question, Jesse. I am just admitting that at that last part, I wasn't paying attention. I was reading that question because I thought it was going to be related to what we were talking about, and it wasn't. So it kicked me off. And
I know you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
sorry.
I think that the whole climate debate issue is something that's going to be around for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And this little bit of a discussion is not going to resolve that, but hopefully
No.
we can portray to people to get educated on the issue.
Right.
I still think that's the number one issue.
Well, hold on. I got a way to tie it in. So for you guys that sell data communication products and help stock data centers, with this technological switch, let's say somehow in the next 10 years we do all switch to EVs and all this new technology. And I don't know if you guys heard, but Tesla is launching their $500 million Dojo computer, AI computer in New York. It's going to be massive. It's going to help run the full self-driving and all that kind of stuff that's kind of piped out to all the cars through 4G, right?
Yeah.
Now, how would we power that infrastructure? So we would be involved in helping expand the data centers, helping AI grow, how would we help facilitate that change to that technology?
As a cable house, as a cable assembly house, we manufacture all those custom needs and products that they might need for that environment. Also understanding what the new technology is leading to. Servers are getting faster.
Right.
The computing speeds are getting phenomenal compared to where they were even 10 years ago. So along with that, they're speeding up the processing, and in those events you need cabling in order to enhance that and, comprehend and take that information and shoot over their super fast speeds. Along with that, we're going to end up, it's just, again, it comes down to a money issue at the end of the day. How much money are they going to put into the infrastructure to create that environment to facilitate that?
Right. And, if we were talking about actually doing an EV type of rollout that would be 100% compliance or high majority compliance, we need to start on another nuclear power plant right now.
Yeah.
Because this would not cut it. I mean, it doesn't cut all the power just for current need, let alone that. So
Sure.
You would need to completely transform, and it might need two of them. I don't know what the total output is and what the consumption is of the valley and the percentage of consumption from Palo Verde that the valley is allocated.
I think that the Palo Verde plant actually powers most of the Southwest, and I think that we would probably have to expand that. We did a video on how the grid can handle EVs, and there's some pretty interesting stuff from a YouTube channel called Engineering Explained that kind of broke down the math on how that would work. And I don't think we're too far away from really being able to handle massive increase in EVs and stuff. But I think that the infrastructure you guys are talking about, like when we go to a charging station, for example, and you go to a Tesla charger, those Tesla chargers have to be networked, right?
Correct.
Each one has to be able to connect, and the main hub at the charging center has to connect. And then we're going to see gas stations transform. We're going to see, especially unless we, drop the charging time down. Right now it's about 20 to 25 minutes to go from 0 to full at a Tesla supercharger.
See, that's
depending.
not bad. I understand the value in that. The problem I have with this is, like I said, the painful process we're going to go through is the fact that how does it hit my pocketbook? Yeah. It has to be economical. And right now we're not at that stage yet. The average person needs to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go buy an EV vehicle. It's going to cost me $12,000 to $14,000, somewhere in that range, which is economical for me and my family to be sustainable. And we're just nowhere near that figure yet.
We're not near that for the infrastructure either. And while I applaud, stations going up, the idea that we are close to being able to support it is a little bit not, I don't think it's based in reality. I mean, that in California, if they have a hot day and everybody turns on their air conditioner, they have brownouts.
Yeah.
So there is electrical grid issues all over the U.S. Arizona, fortunately, when we built Palo Verde, that was the silver bullet for Phoenix, right? That allowed us to be able to expand as rapidly as we have. If we didn't have that power plant, we would be LA. We would be to go rolling brownouts and,
Yeah, the LA is rough. I think I'll send you guys a link to the Engineering Explained so you can look at it, but that's more of inconsistencies in the quality of the grid, not necessarily the capacity that it could handle. So there are things definitely that would need to be fixed, but if we get those things fixed, then those won't be issues. And then Texas, for example, which is completely independent and has its own grid entirely, still like 2 years ago had that massive outage where people were dying because of it. You know, there was like several weeks outage where it was this horrible thing. So grid isolation really isn't a good solution either. So bringing them in and tying them into some kind of nuclear plant and something like that would also help. But those things in and of themselves, if we can solve those issues in parts of the grid, the actual infrastructure is capable of handling the amount of EVs that we would need.
And that's good news. But again, I go back to an economic factor. And if you really want to take money out of the equation, there's one way to do it, and that's to make people and get them to understand the value in it.
Right.
You know, that's just like we sell USA made cabling.
Right.
Okay. You're going to pay a little more money for our cabling versus say what comes out of China.
Right.
Okay. But that's because people find the value
in it. Right.
and the quality. So when people get educated to understand where they can be empowered to make those decisions, all of a sudden money no longer becomes a factor.
You know, that's a great point. And I think, you know, I've been around you too long already because I'm starting to have the same thoughts at the same time. But the U.S. manufactured cables, I mean, look, let's just be honest. If you are committed to made in USA, then China cables shouldn't be an option. And unfortunately, it's a big option for a lot of people. Now, you want them, they're there, right?
Yeah.
But U.S. manufactured, that commitment to quality and to supporting workers in our country, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you get for it. You get the lifetime guarantee. You get the assured quality product.
Yeah. Again, the term I like to use for that is value. When you personally find the value in something. Hey, Pete chimed back in here, said, certainly, Daryl, a new breed of cables is emerging, ranging from high voltage cables in IR cars now, or in our cars now, and a production robot capable of moving 7 feet per second. Pretty amazing stuff.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah, very fast.
Well, I tell you, when, you know, obviously,
I'll see if I can grab a video of that. Sorry, the Tesla bot.
Oh,
well,
do you have a video?
we talked last week or the week before about immersion cooling technology.
Yes.
And so, you know, it's a different subject, but same thing. You know, there's a technological advancement. Cabling that we develop or that we produce is utilized. That type of cables utilized in that environment. And it's a matter of identifying which cabling will be most effective in that, or is it something that needs to be developed, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Because a cable should not be the limitation on the technology. It's just a means of transport.
So here I got the video
Correct.
for you. I think we might have watched this before, but let me show you this.
Now, this is
I
the
think we
Tesla
did,
robot,
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, this is a Tesla robot showing the different generations, and it shows how they move currently. And Tesla's going to have these in production and in factories here, hopefully within the next year, doing some pretty serious tasks.
So these would be normally tasks that us humans wouldn't want to do.
I mean, yeah, I would assume so. I think
What every parent wants to know is, will they change diapers?
Yeah, right?
I mean, if you look at the dexterity on the hands, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And so if we can provide cables for these things or find ways to incorporate our tech in it, that'd be awesome too.
There's actually quite a bit we probably could, promote in this.
Now, it doesn't look like 7 feet per second.
Pretty quick, though.
But it's pretty
No,
quick.
he's
It's pretty good.
I think he was talking about the maybe production robots, not meaning these guys and not like the arms and stuff. So
It could be that he's talking about the robotic arms. That is pretty good technology to look at that. And it's only going to improve from there.
This is only 10 years in development or less.
Wow. So is that another key to stopping climate change? Robots that don't emit any natural gases?
you ever seen the movie I, Robot?
No, I
Yeah,
haven't.
that's a classic.
Is it
Yeah,
good?
yeah, with Will Smith.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait,
Yeah,
I
I'll have to watch that.
I always do this. I always forget to show the ending of it. Hold on. Let me,
Look at that. Get down.
Do we really need
That's cool.
anybody replacing the dancing?
no.
Yeah.
Holding the meaning to going clubbing, right?
Yeah, right. So, yeah, you'll have to see. You usually have seen stuff. So,
Yeah, I
Surprised
Robot's
you
one
haven't
I
seen
haven't
that.
watched. I'll have to watch that.
yeah.
Check it out.
That's one's, it does have robots in it, but that's more about artificial intelligence kind of
Is it?
going haywire.
So the fast ones are production robots, fixed-mounted, non-human looking. That's what we're getting there.
Right.
Bring up a production floor.
Oh,
at
we got some
Tesla.
more
Okay, I can
people
do that.
chiming in. Daryl there. I'm a grandson of David Bogen, who founded his company in 1932. We subcontract out certain types of cables. Pretty cool.
Okay, I'm gonna show this one is what he was talking about, I think, which is the
Is it like the Bogen amps? Is that is that you guys, Daryl?
Now, is this the production floor that Pete's
this is
talking
gonna
about?
be this is gonna be a fly through showing the robots that are stationary arms like going crazy making cars. This is pretty wild drone work they got
Yeah,
going
I'd say
on here.
so. Look at that.
But wait till you see it start flying through their machinery here.
Whoa.
Yeah, this is like some pretty high level drone work. This guy's real good at his job.
Yep. Afford to make a mistake there.
No,
No
it gets crazier though.
damping procedures going on there. Boom.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff, doing the gigapress, Tesla brought that into automotive, and now everyone is moving to it.
Wow.
Here's a question. Is there any information on how much CO2 is released by Tesla through the manufacturing process?
I could probably find that.
I think it's in their impact report. Every year they do an impact report, and
Yeah.
they usually give out numbers within there.
That's pretty amazing.
See those robots right there, I think is what he's talking about. But there's
Yeah.
some crazier ones here in a second. Those ones, these guys are always moving.
Each arm has a specific job.
Yeah.
There's your
Nice.
answer.
Yeah. Familiar with the product. Wow.
But yeah, this whole production environment is crazy. And Tesla also, unlike Ford and GM and any of the other major auto manufacturers or even small auto manufacturers, is fully vertically integrated, meaning everything happens in one building on site. They don't get different parts or transmissions or this or that from any other place.
So
It's all done in-house. Every
Through
single
the entire
thing.
production.
Nice.
Every little thing is done in-house.
Very cool.
Well, Daryl, if we can be of any service, we're going to give you our contact info at the end here. Feel free to hit us up. We'd love to do business with your custom cable work for sure.
Yeah. We were going to get into some other issues today, but we're running short on time here. About 8 minutes left. So
Yeah. I mean, it flies, and I'm really happy that we get to actually free range this a little bit. It's less dry for sure.
yeah,
We appreciate Jesse and Aaron piping in,
Hey.
no matter how wrong they may be.
You know what I
Exactly.
Jesse, you know what I found
Yeah.
over the weekend? I found a new link on the internet for a sausage company. Pretty good sausage.
Sausage company.
Yeah.
What?
Would you like me to send you a link?
Oh, that's a
my
dad joke.
Wow.
Had to throw that in there.
was no.
Wow. Oh, we got one more from Pete
Ting.
coming in here.
That's when you know you've jumped the shark for the day. No. Oh my gosh.
Humans were.
Robot arm zipping around like.
Yeah, Daryl, we'll get that information. I've got that information available, Jesse.
Yeah, you can contact us
let me
at
get that.
wired@gruber.com, right? And that email will go straight to John and I.
Yeah.
So wired@gruber.com. And then we're going to pop our actual phone numbers up here and email addresses.
Yeah, it'll be at the end in
Yep,
that
okay.
little thing.
Yeah,
Right.
that'll work.
Good. Yeah.
If you like our show and you want to share it with those others around you, please subscribe, like, share, let others know what we're talking about. And if you have idea for anything you'd like us to speak about, talk about on one of our shows, let us know.
Right. Well, I think we had. Do we not have that graphic that has our information on it that goes behind us
at the end of the show here?
I don't know if the phone number does. So the number, just so you know, is 602-863-2655. Your extension is
221.
Mine is 273.
Yeah. So, just kind of going over what we talked about today really quick, sum it all up, is that this climate control and climate change that we're experiencing, I really don't think that it's something that is that hardcore pressing. I think it's an issue. It's something that we need to, work through and resolve, but it's just going to take time to get there.
Look, truth matters, and so I'm all for truth. Whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, right? We have to be able to deal with reality. I don't like to get spun ever.
Okay, here we go.
You don't spin truth, right?
No.
Truth is truth, and there's if there's a complete report or somebody's version of a report, which is the truth, the full picture, right?
Yeah.
Trust people to make the best decision, right? And if they don't, it's on them. It's not on anybody else at that point. So yeah, here's our contact info. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, and if you really want the truth, at the end of the day, we got to find the fox molders.
Yeah,
They're
the truth is out there.
The truth is out there for sure.
Right.
The Dana Scully's of the world. And honestly, those are people who are actually, even though it's a TV show, it's representative of wanting to do the right thing.
Like the quest for knowledge should not ever take a back seat to agendas, right? No. Whatever the quest, that's our human experience is all based on what's around the next bend, right? Yeah. That our curiosity is God inspired, and it's natural for us to be curious. And we can either accept answers and just say, yeah, okay, I'll comply, or we can understand what is going on with stuff.
Yeah. My little point here at the end, regardless of the climate change or any of that, my point is that there are a multitude of technologies that are burgeoning now that we could be putting money into that are much better than 100-year-old fossil fuel technology we've been working on. So that's my opinion.
Right. Yeah. And I understand what you're saying, but you're claiming we aren't putting money into it.
Well, no, I'm saying that the money that's going into fossil fuels should be put elsewhere. I'm not saying there's no money going into EVs. I'm saying all of the money should be going into nuclear fusion and solar.
Well, money does follow ideas. So if you're claiming that anything is under-supported, then that's a discussion. But if you're just saying throw money at a problem, that's a sure way to get disappointed.
Here's the problem.
How much money have they thrown at let's say muscular dystrophy and cancer, right? They've thrown a lot of money at it. They're making breakthroughs now, but it had nothing to do with the amount of money, but when people got to a certain point of realization, whether it's mapping the human genome or other emerging things that happen that may or may not have been a part of the original science.
But we know the money's out there.
Right.
So why are we spending all that money in the military for destructive purposes when we could take some of those and refine how much money we're spending to put it into something positive?
So let's take this a couple parts at a time real quick. I know we're ending here, but the reason I say we don't defund the military is because the military, specifically the Defense Advanced Research Project,
DARPA,
that is what gave us the internet, and that was militarily funded. So I would never say let's take money away, because a lot of our tax dollars are going to research that we just don't know about yet, right? So I would never say let's defund the military in service of going for nuclear fusion, because we don't know what they're actually funding with that money. It's not all going to bullets, right? So that's part one. Part two would be, I'm not saying that money I'm not saying that money doesn't get misallocated. So when you're talking about taking money and putting it into cancer research and going down these rabbit holes of studies that don't pan out and then money's getting wasted, that's one thing. I'm just simply saying we don't need to continue developing fossil fuel technology. We need to develop these other technologies. And the way to do that faster is to incentivize the same scientists that are working and physicists that are working on fossil fuel, incentivize them to go into these other industries.
Well, so your homework for next week is to bring in the numbers on how much is being spent on fossil fuel development technology and
Yeah, I can do that.
and how it's allocated. So how much is, geological surveys to figure out where to drill, things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of R&D that goes on, but I'd be interested in knowing. It's a legitimate question. I'm not being a smart aleck.
I would like to know
wanna
too. I
that.
honestly don't know that.
And one thing we don't allocate enough of is time, and our time is coming to a close here on the show.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. Again, share, subscribe, like, give us some feedback, give us comments. We're looking for that. And other than that, thank you once again, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, we really appreciate you being here, and we'll be here next Monday again at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Mark,
Arizona time.
Your best dad joke right now.
I don't have one.
You don't have a dad
I'm
joke?
spent. My brain is fried right now.
Jesse,
Dad joke.
dad joke. Come on, pop it out.
I'm trying to think. Actually, Richard was the one that used to tell the dad jokes on the show. I don't have one. I'll have one next week.
Aaron, dad joke.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, on the spot.
Yeah, no
yeah.
kidding, right?
Why
It's like-
did the Scarecrow win an award?
Why?
Because he was outstanding in his field.
That's a dad joke.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're great.
Way to be instant on that. It's
Right?
like I just, that's great.
Nice.
Thank you everybody for being here. Like, subscribe, and share. Let's get us over 10,000 today. 10,000
Yeah.
subscribers, and go watch some of our previous podcasts. We need about 3,000 more hours for YouTube to recognize us favorably, more
Hey,
favorably.
we are I'm favorable.
Yeah, no. I
You
don't
see?
mean that. I mean, and this is John Dotson, and he's not suicidal. So just, make sure, with the comments about the military, we know he's not suicidal,
No,
right?
no.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.